Hey folks, here's my first attempt at the lap guide for Watkins Glen in the Ford Mustang Mach 1. Um, we're gonna do something a little different and start um, try doing this while I'm driving and as I'm making mistakes, hopefully talking through them and what I'm doing to correct those mistakes. So we're going to start at the end of the lap because these set of corners set you up for the main straight, and you have to get these corners right. Otherwise, you're not going to be you're not going to be carrying the speed you should be down the main straight. If you saw the Xbox Finals race on this track, you saw kind of how much time you can make up by getting these corners right and getting quickly onto the main straight. Um, I think Chase was leading about a second and a half into these complex corners and came out almost side by side by the time we were at the start-finish line. And it really doesn't make sense to practice your braking points into the first corner if you're going to be, 10, 15 miles per hour down on what you would if you had spent some time on these corners. So let's get rolling. Um, and like I said, I'm just going to talk through this as I drive. So um, as I'm doing this, will be things I'm doing right. Call those out. So that little man on the right side here, he's really my track marker for this corner. Coming into here, you can brake calculate. If you want to do, back up a little bit there and explain what I'm doing here. What I'm using is the 100-foot marker on the inside, not the outside, the inside. So as soon as I pass that, I'm slowing down, but I'm braking, but not braking very hard. I'm braking just so that I get the weight up to the front, scrub a little bit of speed off, get the weight up to the front, so it helps the nose turn in. And then I'm going to be very patient on the throttle here. After the TV boom on the throttle, if you're doing this right, you should be able to take it. You want to get progressively back on the throttle, but you should be able to get full on the throttle the corner exit and really leverage the outside of that corner. Alright, so let's try that again. Braking a little bit right there. On the throttle, full on the throttle. Lots of space here to run off. If you do run off there, it's about half a second pedal. So you really want to straighten these corners as much as possible out. And you don't have to slow down quite as much as you initially think you do for them. So setting up for this corner, if you've gotten out of the previous corner, the long left-hander cleanly, you can use the tire walls on the left-hand side as your as a brake reference. And I tend to just, you notice that I stay in third gear for the entire corner. I don't downshift. You carry a lot more speed here. If you downshift, some people I've seen downshift into second, but you're really on the limiter in second, and the car will be fairly twitchy. You have to be very smooth on the throttle. And so I stay in third here, and again, it's not very hard on the brakes. It's hard enough that I scrub a little bit of speed and get the nose turn. Brakes. Off the brakes, turning. Oh, that's bad. So what happened there is braked a little bit too early, turned in a little bit too early. So I hit the apex earlier than I usually do. Tried to get away there by cutting a little bit on the grass because I knew I was at the apex too early. And then, so let's try that again. Off the brakes, back on the gas, squeezing the throttle, full on the throttle. Out of it. And then now you're carrying, so you should be at about 120 miles down the main straight for this. And my ghost that I'm chasing right now is Florin, and you'll notice he's beat my lap by a good half second there, so he's got a very quick lap in here. Don't know if I can actually beat that. But coming down the straight, you're at about 120 miles. You want to kind of start just playing with braking moves that you feel comfortable with. To get cleanly through the corner, you need to be at about second gear, somewhere in second gear. So what I've done there is I've braked a little bit too hard. I've locked up the fronts. I wasn't able to turn into the corner. So that's something that you have to be very careful about in this car. You want to you'll want to keep, if you're using a controller, brake till it starts vibrating, but you'll have to find that point where it's just starting to vibrate. You don't want to let off completely so it stops vibrating. You want to keep it vibrating just a little bit, but if you squeeze it any more, the front tends to lock up. So you're going to find that balance where it's just starting to, the controller is starting to vibrate. For that 300-foot brake marker, you really use that inside curb. And through here, what's most important is the line. There's really not much you can do here other than, actually let's go through the line on this. Because this is such a long back, this leads up to the back straight, you want to sacrifice corner entry for corner exit speed. Right? So you want to maximize your corner exit speed. And the way to do that is really to straighten out the left-hander at the top of the hill. So if I were to go and try and go flat out into this series, what I'm going to run into is, start running wide. If I'm not letting off the throttle, I'm going to start running wide on this first right-hander, and I'm not going to be lined up. I'm not going to have the best line through here. You see I'm losing time before and I'll go through here. So let's try that again. But I'm going to take the first right-hander a little more conservatively. And sometimes that means letting off the throttle as well, so that you can stay close to the inside curb here. And then get a really good line out the top of the hill. So I've let off the gas just a little bit here so I can tuck in just after this curve ends where I start turning in over the top of the hill. You see I'm a lot closer to Florin now. I've lost much less time, and that was just me rubbing the wall on the exit. Again, the car on wide open throttle, if you put too much steering input into it, the back will tend to step out. So it's really finding that going to be small steering inputs, small smooth steering inputs, and then if you do need to correct your line, try to do it with the throttle rather than steering input. So if you find yourself running wide, let off the throttle a little bit, front will tuck back in. Don't try to put more steering angle on, because the back will just step out. Right, so if I went into this first corner, and I just tried to correct it, I tried to do this with steering input. You see I'm fighting the car a little bit here. I'm still losing more time than I would if I just make sure I had a clean line that required as little steering input as possible. And if I need to correct the line using the throttle. So a little bit off the throttle here so I can stay on the inside. Very straightest line possible through here. I could be closer to the curb there. I should be hugging the curb a little more there, so that way I can also straighten out that corner a little bit more. And then you're looking for the 400-foot braking marker here. Okay, so if you miss that, it's quite a lot of time to be gained through this complex as well. So the 400-foot braking marker here is really what you're looking for. And if you're braking at the braking marker, that's probably a little too late. So it's going to be somewhere between the 500-foot and the 400-foot. Now generally I like to pace it at around, like in a race situation, I'm going to pick somewhere around 450 feet, just to make sure that I'm consistent through the corner. It might not be the absolute fastest, it's a braking point that I know I'll be able to run consistently. Alright, so let's play that. Looking for 450 feet. There it is, brake. Still on the brake stick while I'm turning in. Okay. So I'm on the brakes. If you notice my my inputs, I'm on the brakes all the way until I hit that inside curb on the first right-hander. And that's just because I want all of the weight planted on those front tires and point the car where I want to. Brakes. Still on the brakes, but lighter on the brakes. Get a straight line through here. Yeah, so I'm fighting the car a little bit. Fighting the back end of the car a little bit here, because I'm full on the throttle right now. But you'll notice here, so as you're going through here, as soon as you pass this first right-hander apex, you're looking at the next apex. Where's the next apex? My preferred reference here is the end of the left-hand curb, right? So that as the curb ends there, that's what I'm aiming for. And that'll keep the car nice and tight for the next left-right as well. So if you do this right, the car has a very good straight line through the next left-right. Sets you up very well for a clean exit. So let's try that again. Okay, looking for the 450 foot. There it is. Brake. Still on the brakes. Turning in. Off the brakes. Back on the gas. And again, it's the same, points of reference here as well. I'm aiming for the inside, the end of this curb here. And then again, I'm trying to hit this curb here and aiming for the end of this curb out on the right-hand side. And on this long right-hander is really where you're going to feel, this is why we picked this car this month, because it exaggerates a lot of the weight transfer concepts. So as you're heading into this corner, I typically don't need to brake for this corner. I just let off the gas and let it coast. But even coasting, the weight shifts towards the front and you get it turned in. But as you get on the gas, you'll notice the back end, as the weight shift towards the back, the the back end of this car doesn't have any fancy differentials, so it will start to push out. And that's actually helpful in that it balances the understeer tendency of the car. So I guess it's kind of hard to show in the in-car cam. But as I'm going through here, I'm letting off the gas, so that I'm tucking into the corner. As now I have the line I want, I'm getting on the gas a little bit just to balance the car, and then really getting on the gas here and making that bag push out wide. And same with this corner. You can carry a little bit of extra speed into that, because you want to straighten the car out as quickly as possible. Anytime you try to put power down in this car, you really want to do it in a straight line. It's the same with this. It's too wide there, but the reason I take a line like that is to try and maximize corner entry speed, kind of square off the corner, get the car pointed in the right direction, get the car slowed down, put it in the right direction, and then get on the accelerator as much as possible in a straight line. So I'm on the brakes hard here, and I'm using the brakes to turn the nose in. Now I'm back on the throttle, and again trying to straighten that out as much as possible. It's very hard to keep the back checked along the uphill part of that corner. And now we're back to the series of corners we started with. Again, using that person on the right here. This dude. There he is. And I'm sure they put these guys in here just for additional references. But here we go. So right just a little bit before I'm lined up with him. And really just feathering the throttle, finding that point in the throttle where the car is not oversteering and is neutral enough. So if I let off the gas completely, there's going to be too much weight on the front. I'm going to turn into the corner too much. And I'll have to reduce my steering input. But that means I have extra grip available, right? So I want to put that grip down by getting on the accelerator, and that kind of evens it out, right? So that getting on the accelerator now shifts a little bit of the weight to the back. I'm not going to be tight on the corner, and really using the accelerator to modulate the line rather than using the steering. So this little person again. I'm on the grass. Hang on. Looking for this little person. Brakes. Still on the brakes. Off the brakes and on the gas to modulate my line. And again, looking for the inside 100-foot brake marker. A little bit of brakes. Still in third. Waiting for the TV camera. Back on the throttle. Nice clean line through there. A little bit of brakes. So I had a bad entry angle into that corner. What you need to do is get over to the left side a little bit earlier, so you're not entering the corner at an angle. So I'm going to try that. Move over to the left a little bit more. Brakes. Okay, that lines me up for the apex much better. I'm back full on the throttle. Just power out of the corner. Let's see if we can stitch it all together for a good lap. 300-foot marker, brakes. Turning in while on the brakes. A little bit wide there, could be a little bit tighter on the apex. Modulating my line with the throttle, waiting for the end of that. Oh, waiting for the end of that curb. And hugging this curb as tight as I can. You should feel it vibrate in your controller to let you know that your inside two wheels are on that curb. That's a good thing. 400 foot brake marker on the brakes, turning in on the brakes, off the brakes. Looking for that inside apex. Oh. So I lost the back end there on the throttle. A little too eager on the throttle, so that's probably about a second of penalty time with race regulations on, so that's pretty harsh. And this little, I forgot to mention that, this little manhole cover that we're going to come up on the right. Right here. That's a good braking reference for this corner. Want to be patient on the throttle, straighten out the car as much as possible. Use the again, use the accelerator to modulate your line. Then we're looking for the 200-foot brake marker here. And this little man on the right here. The 100-foot brake marker on the inside. Getting over to the left, braking. You can get on the gas right after you pass the apex here. There's enough grip for you to just track out towards the wall. And the other thing with this car is that it's got a lot of flex in its tires. They're skinny, high-profile tires. So you'll feel the car aim a little further inside than you normally would on a corner, just because it will have the tendency to drift out. Looking for the 450-foot mark. Is brake, still on the brakes. Now I'm turned in the direction I want. Back on the throttle. Again, a little too eager on the throttle. Looking for that manhole cover. Here it is. And squaring off the so that's the line I actually usually take through that corner. I try to carry a little extra speed into that, and again, doing the same thing that I do in the next corner, but this corner is a little longer, so it's not quite as evident. But I'm just trying to square it off a little bit so that I get a later apex, I'm hitting a later apex, and I'm getting a straighter line out of the corner so I can put more power down. Alright, so on the brakes, I hit the grass there. On the brakes, turning into the corner, still carrying too much speed. Now I'm tucking into the apex and full on the power through the rest of the corner. 200-foot marker here. Squaring off the corner, pointing in the right direction, squeezing the throttle. Again, I'm looking for the 200-foot brake marker here on the outside. And this little man on the right here is my turn-in reference. And that throttle modulation is really key in these corners. Finding finding the limit of grip so that the back is not sliding out. And just slowly squeezing the trigger as you're coming out of the corner, just trying to slowly put more power down. So you want to put the power down first to neutralize the car. Sorry, I'm too busy driving, not talking enough. So you want to put the power down to neutralize the car, right? You're braking into the corner. The weight is on the front, right, and it's tucked in. As soon as it's tucked into the direction that you want it to go, you want to get back on the throttle to maintain that direction. If you're off the throttle, it's going to tuck into the corner too much, and you're going to have to adjust your steering input. Which means you're not maximizing the grip available to you. So really get on the brakes as soon as and use that weight transfer to tuck in the front end into the direction that you want to go. But as soon as it's there, use the throttle to start evening out the weight distribution of the car. So that's nice and balanced as the way you want through the corner. And then slowly squeeze that throttle to try and put more and more weight to the back, more and more power to the back, without letting it step out. And you might feel your controller vibrate, and that's okay as long as you're not losing control of the back end. Alright, so let me see if I can get a little closer to the floor, and he's put an excellent lap down. On the brakes, turning in on the brakes, back on the throttle. Using this curve to straighten out a series of corners, waiting for the end of the curve on the right here. He's way ahead of this lap. .450 foot brake marker, downshift 1, back on the throttle, looking for the end of this curve, and off the throttle here so that the front end tucks in. It's tucked in the way I want. Back on the throttle. Breaking out the manhole cover. Again, it's turned in now, so I can start getting back on the throttle, wait for that late apex, and then full on the throttle. Late braking, turned in, back on the throttle, squeezing the throttle more, full on the throttle. Oops. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to shift there. But again, looking for the 200-foot brake marker into that corner, and the little man on the right-hand side. Turning point from this corner, squeezing the throttle to keep applying more and more power, and then full on the throttle. Looking for the 100-foot brake marker here. Dab on the brakes. A little too much speed into that corner, so I have to be more patient putting the power down outside on the exit. And again, putting the power down after the apex here. Nice clean apex. Full power. Down the straight. That's a 221, that's not great. So you can see that Florin is putting down the power a little more smoother on the exit. He's able to put more power down earlier. So he's doing a better job there of modulating the gas and finding that limit of grip. And he's being smoother here as well. That's how he's carrying more speed through the high-speed S's. 400-foot brake marker. Turned in on the gas again to stabilize the car. full on the gas, I've got the line I want. Off the gas for the front end to tuck in. Back on the throttle just a little bit, now that I've got the line I want. Full on the throttle for the exit. Braking at the manhole cover. Off the brakes, front's tucked in, late apex, back on the gas. And square this corner off again. I'm using the power here to push the back out a little bit. But it's finding that limit so that you're not power sliding, and it's just, it's just making the back step out a little bit. Causing the balance of the car to just be a little bit oversteery. And then you're really just steering the car with the throttle, not so much the steering input. Oh, that's bad. Foot brake marker, dab, turn in, power down, using all of the track and getting back over to the left. Another dab on the brakes, turn in, back on the power. This will probably be in the 219s if I don't hit the rev limiter. Alright, so that wasn't too bad. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what I'm doing as I'm practicing. This is a really fun car to drive. And again, it really highlights the some of the car control concepts that we want to get across here, which is, you want to find balance in the car and maximize your grip, and don't I guess what would be the right way to say it? Don't rely only on your steering input. Don't bully the car around with your steering inputs. Really, if you want to be quicker, you'll have to work with the grip you have, be smooth on your steering inputs, and really shift the weight of the car around so that you maximize your grip. Alright, hopefully you found that helpful. This is just the start of the discussion, so if you have any questions, let us know, and you feel free to post your own laps as well, and we can take a look at them and see if we have any tips or advice that we can give you. Thanks everyone.